Yeah. Happy if you wanted to eat something, you're welcome to. We got some.
A giant monitor.
We're trying all the technology, trying to make it work for everybody.
I disrupted by taking my teeth out. That's right. You should be able to see all the thing on stage.
But you have to, if you don't go through. But I don't.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's right at 12. Welcome everybody to our final presentation of Making Sense of Sense for the year. My name is Brooke and I'm a program coordinator here at Alzheimer's Services. We're trying some new technology today. This is where we're recording from. We have a little mic up here. So for those on Zoom, if it's a little different, just bear with us. For those in person, you might just have to, bear with us. So for those on Zoom, you will remain muted throughout the whole presentation. If you have any questions, you can put them into the chat box. We will be recording this presentation and putting it on our YouTube channel for those that want to rewatch it later, or if you want to share it with somebody, you can do that. Following this presentation, all Making Sense participants from the whole series will be receiving an evaluation through your email that you can let us know how we can make this program better. And for those who have completed all 3 sessions, one of the benefits of completing all 3 sessions is you receive a free consultation with an elder law attorney. For those that have completed all 3, I will be emailing you that link. After that, well, y'all join us, offer free consultation. And then if anybody is interested in meeting with our presenter today, he likewise offers free consultation. So just putting that out there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenter today. His name is Adam Karrigan. He's practiced that has been in Baton Rouge for over 25 years. Adam engages with individuals and businesses to educate and guide them to their financial goals. Adam graduated cum laude in finance from Louisiana State University, and since the beginning his professional career, he has obtained his Series 7, Series 66, Insurance, and Certified Financial Planner Professional designations. Didn't even know those series were things, so kudos. And he is an active member within Forum 225 and Baton Rouge Area Chamber of Commerce, where he served as an ambassador. Adam and his beautiful wife, Sarah, live in Baton Rouge and have a daughter together named Amelia. So, Adam, take it away. Thanks for being with us here today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. Just want to play a bit of groundwork. Again, my name is Adam Karrigan. I'm a CFP professional with Ameriprise Financial. Today, I'm mostly going to be talking about caring for aging loved ones and things to consider along that process. It'll probably take about 30 to 40 minutes, then I'll have time for questions after. First and foremost, I kind of want to acknowledge that every one of you here, even the people watching online, might be at different points in their caregiver journey. You might be one of the ones that are approaching to consider helping your loved one, whether it's with their finances, with their personal or their medical needs, or you might be in the thick of things, right? You're already caring for someone that might need some additional assistance and care. And then finally, one of you might be the loved one that might need to ask your family for some type of love and support. There's many factors that go into it, but I've narrowed it down over the years with three things: finances, healthcare, and legacy planning.
Just a little arrow. Nope. Okay, maybe click it with the mouse. And then click the arrow. Down, maybe? Oh, geez.
Well, the good news. Yeah, I mean, well, the next slide, it's just gonna lay the groundwork, right? So, we can always just scroll down, I guess. Perfect. Okay, so kind of like I mentioned, today's agenda, we're gonna focus on three things. As a loved one typically ages, there are typically more responsibilities that fall on the family. But one thing I feel like is important is you need to collaborate with the loved one as well as all the family to understand what are the responsibilities, the care, and really what does the loved one need help with? At what level can they accomplish some of these things by themselves, and what do they need regarding actual care that they want? It's important to remember that there's so many topics that go into this, and I'm narrowing down to these three. But at the same time, there's a lot of complex things that we can go over. This is going to more so provide a holistic, hopefully a lot of information and resources to kind of guide you to get to that level of expertise with this. Okay, so some things to remember. One, as you all are kind of approaching these important topics with your loved one, you have to realize that there's no right or wrong answers to some of these questions, right? I mean, every family is unique in their own way. They're not, some families work in this dynamic, and then other ones work in this different type of this is just more so going to be a guide for you. It's not necessarily this is the right way to do it, this is the wrong way to do it. Another thing is that the thing that's difficult is the relationship dynamic of the family changes when you get to this stage, right? Because you have a parent who can also be a mother or father, as well as they have their own parents to care for. That's where the kind of term sandwich generation comes from, right? Because you're kind of stuck in the middle of now I have to care for my parents, but also when we look down a generation, I'm also caring for my own children. So it can be difficult. And to the second point, a positive attitude, while it's difficult sometimes, it means sometimes you have a screen crying baby, you know, you kind of have to fight through that, but at the same time, just try to keep positive attitude for all of it. And remember, 3 and 4 are more so cohesive. It's not a one and done conversation. It's not a one-time conversation, and then that's the end of it. It's some of these things happen over the course of weeks, months, years, to kind of determine what level of services you want, and realize there's many professionals. I mean, myself, Brooke, there's so many medical professionals, estate planning professionals that are there to help you and guide you through this process. It doesn't have to be a one-man show or one-woman show. Kind of moving on, I mean, kind of hammering a dead horse here, but at the same time, everyone is unique in some way. Some of them where the caregiving is gradual, right? You kind of have a few tasks. Maybe you're going to get groceries for your mother, or maybe you're gonna go run errands for her. And then eventually it might lead to, oh, I have to pay her bills and I have to bathe her and stuff along those lines. So sometimes it's gradual, other times major health event or financial event, and you're 0 to 100, you're all in. You have to care for or find some type of care for that loved one at a moment's notice. So that's why I harp on where I'm going to go over some of these topics in the next few slides, but realize that whatever your starting point is, it can be different for everyone, right? I mean, this isn't a 1, 2, 3 list. This is, okay, we're approaching it from this point of view, or approaching from this point of view. And so that's something to remember and kind of get clear about. So this is a good slide for those of you that can see it. I'll read it out loud as well. It's important to clarify roles and responsibilities with your family dynamic. So if you have multiple siblings, if you have multiple people that can help that loved one, it's important to have some type of comprehensive meeting all together to kind of clarify who is going to aid in what process. If you're by yourself, it's also beneficial to keep meeting with that loved one to make sure that all their needs are being taken care of in some which way. I highly recommend doing some sort of comprehensive meeting where you can kind of go over each person's, obviously, location, skills, and honestly, what can they provide to the situation. Because for instance, maybe Aunt Sally is great at going to run errands, the practical support, right? The home cleaning, they can go do all that type of stuff, but she thinks 2 + 2 is 5. So the financial part might not fall in her category, where Uncle Tom is great at finance, but his house is very messy. He can never clean anyone's house. So it's useful when you have multiple family members that can help, but having those comprehensive discussions within, that's where you're able to kind of divide and conquer from there. To those online, you can see this. The main ones are health and financial support, personal support, and practical support. And as I mentioned, they're all different, but they don't need to be taken care of in some regard. And some of these, the loved one can probably take care of themselves, but others, over time, you probably could take care of more and more of these. One note I'll make on the financial part of things, a trusted contact or trusted account person for their accounts can be very useful. And I recommend this being one person. So what a trusted contact does, they can monitor any fraudulent activities. They know the account numbers are, account passwords, all of that. I recommend one because I don't like this to be widely dispersed. If you have 4 siblings, 4 of them know maybe it's in a scratch pad somewhere. I don't like information to be widely dispersed between a lot of people. The thing is okay, you have all through one person, you have to do some checks and balances on that, right? There needs to be some type of system in place that you can go to them, and unfortunately fraud does occur within family, unfortunately. So you have to have some type of regard to make sure that, yes, they're keeping an eye on things, but they're keeping an eye on things compliantly and in the right best interest of whatever loved one that is. So first consideration obviously is finances. This is going to be one of the bigger ones of the I guess presentation from that regard, kind of talking about what we need to consider when we're kind of dealing with finances. The next slide, so I've narrowed it down to 4, right? We can track income and expenses, and we can document financial information. We also have review insurance policies and watch for fraud, right? There's other ones, and these are in no particular order again. And most of these, since it's a lot of information you're trying to collect, it might not be all done at once. It's not a 1 day or 1 hour thing that you can just go collect all this information. It might just take a little bit of time, but having the list and knowing what things to watch out for, I think is important to consider. So we'll talk about tracking income and expenses first. It had a little balance thing, but then the PDF, but it might be blocking a little bit. But income and expenses, so basic things, right? Typically, loved ones are in their retirement age. So most of their incomes, we have to look at what is their retirement incomes coming in, what expenses do they have to fill daily necessities as well as daily costs and things like that. Expenses can include anything from retirement income, pension income, dividends, social security, retirement portfolio withdrawals, and then expenses, as you all know, insurance, household care, long-term care, utilities, things like that. One thing I find valuable is contact or get in touch with your banking institution and see about getting joint accounts on everything and just have access to one of them. Obviously, if your local is okay with you having access, where you can kind of keep an eye on things. The nice part about some banking institutions too is that a lot of them offer like free like financial planning or free not credit, or I mean, they do offer free credit reports, but free like cash flow statements and everything. Highly recommend from a cash flow standpoint, looking at 4 months of expenses. For loved ones that maybe have inconsistent incomes and expenses, you probably want to go out 6 months. Why? Because some incomes and bills don't occur on a monthly basis. Some of them are on a quarterly, some of them are semi-annual, and some of them honestly are annual. So it's good to kind of look out and see, okay, from looking at 4 to 6 months, what does their expenses look like? What is the income coming in? Where are their pitfalls, or do we need to adjust anything if we can? So that's one of the main things I'll look out for in general. So when we look at online accounts, I talked about getting like your own, I guess your account information with the loved one. But in general, with having accounts online, it's beneficial for you to see at a moment's notice if there's some type of issue with those accounts, right? Fraud protection is very important. We'll get to that in a second. But in general, it's important to know how the accounts are settled. Usually the banking institution has some type of online access. If your loved one does not have online access, maybe they're used to paper and paper statements and everything, that's fine. But I would contact the bank and see if you could possibly set up some online access for them to be able to monitor everything along those lines. The second one, just if y'all have financial advisors, I would highly recommend going back to the last slide with income and expenses, right? Expenses only go up, right? Inflation was 8-9% last year, it's over 3% this year. Your income, unless the portfolio is making up for it, usually doesn't go up unless you kind of force it to go up. So it's good to have conversations. You can be in those meetings with financial advisors, have conversations with them, make sure that their income is in line, their portfolio can withstand a withdrawal of whatever the magnitude it is, see if there's any cost saving techniques, and things like that. So I think that's important to kind of consider when we're going through the finance aspect of things. All right, so when we're reviewing insurance coverages, right? So you can't really see them, kind of sort of, but you have medical, right? I mean, most loved ones are probably going to be either Medicare or Medicaid to some degree. Make sure that they have supplemental policies, what their supplemental policies provide, what coverage details, what expenses might occur with that. As you get older, usually healthcare expenses drop, right? Life insurance might have life insurance, depending, but with that, I would see if they have any like riders on it, any policy details. Usually they're good for like end of life expenses, end of life expenses, as well as just having an estate settlement from that standpoint. So just see what life insurance they have, and if premium is too high, you can kind of decide on what to do with there. Long-term care. Long-term care, I'm sure y'all are all very familiar with long-term care in general. Long-term care insurance, very expensive, right? The older you get, just more expensive. Usually provides some type of daily benefit, elimination period, things like that. One thing to check out is your life insurance policy. If they have some type of life insurance policy, does it have a long-term care rider that you might be able to access some cash value from that policy to be able to use towards your long-term care insurance need? Another good opportunity is maybe with like your financial planner, just like looking at the portfolio in general, seeing if you can earmark funds from your retirement to this long-term care goal, so you have some kind of set aside and more liquid resource to be able to provide for this if you have to go into some type of facility. Property and casualty, obviously, and liability. I want to highlight liability, specifically a personal liability umbrella policy or a club. The reason why these are valuable is, so if you get sued or someone falls and hurts themselves on your property, or you have some type of personal liability to someone, these are good. It says what it isn't covered in other policies. For instance, if you have someone coming to your loved ones or your own home to do some sort of care, or you have home repairs or something like that, if they fall and get injured, it's on your premises, right? So personal liability umbrella policies are typically really cheap. And usually what it does is it goes through either homeowners insurance, car insurance, whatever, and then it goes to your umbrella policy. So it kind of covers the gap after the original insurance goes in. Again, they're really cheap. It's a good opportunity to do that. Kind of in the middle there, it says the main things, and whenever you collect statements, I always recommend pretty much everything we talk about today, recent statements or online access, something along those lines. You want to be up to date with these things. But who are the carriers? What's their contact information? Is there an advisor on record? What's the contract number? What are the policy benefits? And honestly, people can go over this with you. You don't have to be stressed, but mainly like a new statement and things like that. Our policies up to date? Are the premiums still paid in full, right? Is there, if there's a rider on a long-term or life insurance policy, did that rider expire? Because they can. And then what are the coverage details? What are you covered for? What are you not covered for? It's important to understand what your capabilities are with some of these insurances. Okay, so this is the unfortunate part about the conversation, right? So on the left, for those of you who can see, $18,246 is the average amount lost by fraud victims 60 and over. I can tell you firsthand of 3 situations that have happened with clients in our practice. One of them was very similar both ways, but I'll kind of lay it out. So they had a grandmother. She gets a call from her grandson. Her grandson says, "Help, I've been in a car wreck. I'm okay. I'm healthy, but I need money for," I believe it was like the emergency room visit or insurance or something along the, I need money for something. I'm okay, but I need money for something. Obviously grandmother and grandson, that's your baby, you know, you're gonna try to get that money however way you can. So thankfully she called her daughter, who was the alleged son's mother, and the son was with the mother at the time. So she was like, "What are you talking about? He's right here next to me." And so the thing is, that's crazy, is a few months later, that exact type of scam happened again to one of my clients. I would say like 4 months later. And it was actually a husband and wife. They had a primary caregiver around the clock. That caregiver had a week vacation, so they had a substitute caregiver. They called the week that the substitute caregiver was at their residence. Same exact story, right? "Help, grandma and grandpa, I was in a wreck. I really need cash or sent to XYZ. And thankfully the substitute, because I mean, she didn't know any better, she kind of called and made sure that it was incorrect. So both of those were salvaged. The one that was unfortunately not salvaged was a little bit different, right? So the one, we had a client that they called, the IRS called, right? Saying that, "Hey, we're the IRS, you didn't pay enough taxes last year. We're gonna salvage your garnish your wages," and hold on, right? Threatening, anything along those lines. They went as far as to do some type of crypto scam, right? Where she had to open up a cryptocurrency app or something along those lines, buy a cryptocurrency and send it to this address. And I think it was like 4,500 and another, like it was almost $10,000. And they said it was federal and state. And that's why they did 2 of them. Because I mean, how crypto is, there was no trace. That client lost like $10,000. So if they willingly opened up a cryptocurrency and sent it to some unauthorized one, obviously a scam. So I know I'm harping on this a lot, but it is very important to keep your loved one. Even I recommend on like phone calls, if you just have like 5 numbers that they can call, you can kind of block every other number, right? That tries to call them. That's another good way. scams that don't contact you directly. Set up alerts, right? What you can do is, as we talked about before, you can have you and your loved one on an actual bank account or have alerts for it. I mean, I typically don't recommend doing it every little transaction, right? Because sometimes they're daily transactions and they can be lost in the shuffle. I mean, they spend $2 at the nursing facility and it's a cook, you know, everything can kind of get lost in translation. I usually say set like a dollar limit, right? If there's like a $500 more, $250, whatever limit you want to set, you get notified along with them to let them know, okay, this just happened in the account, to make sure that we're on top of that. Another thing is credit reports. People think that trying to access your credit reports, that'll hurt my credit score, that'll hurt my credit score. They offer Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, CreditWise, all of them offer free annual credit reports. That doesn't impact your credit score whatsoever. It's a free service. You can kind of look at that, at least annually, I would say, with them. See, are there any accounts we can close out? Is there anything we can consolidate? I haven't used that credit card in 25 years, but it's still on my credit report. Is there debt that you didn't know about that is apparently showing up on your credit report? I think that's a good way to kind of look at their holistic picture. And again, it doesn't hurt your credit score. It's just one of the free services that most banks and all the credit bureaus, I guess, offer. Security freeze, I also am a big believer in, because what you can do is, if your loved one or yourself are not going to open up new lines of credit, you're not going to open up a new credit card, you're not going to apply for a loan for anything. If you freeze your credit, it stops any scammers from trying to open up accounts in your name. Now, obviously, if you want to ever open up a new line of credit, you have to unfreeze it, which is usually pretty easy. Sometimes it's a clickable button, you freeze it, you know? So if you have it frozen, no one can replicate you and say, hey, blah, 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 because it's like, oh, your credit's frozen. So you have to unfreeze that. And only you, or the loved one, for that matter, can unfreeze it. So that's a good, like, kind of like putting a fence up around, where it's like, okay, we're not really doing anything, but all we're doing is freezing the credit, because we're not going to have any more credit anyway. Is what we have. I already talked about it a little bit. A trusted person. This person can't make changes to the account, right? So they can't, if they have a retirement account, they can't say buy XYZ, sell XYZ, send me a withdrawal for XYZ. They can't do any of that. All they do is if, for instance, Ameriprise, if we notice some weird withdrawals or weird requests from clients, like let's say they take out $100 a month, and then all of a sudden, in the last 5 months, they've been asking for $2,000 a month. That gives us the right to contact a trusted person and be like, hey, we just wanted to check in, make sure that this isn't fraudulent, make sure they're in good spirits and stuff like that. The trusted person is just a person that can kind of catch any compliance or red flags that might occur in accounts that usually the institution will set up. And then obviously I talked a lot about the first one, but just stories like the one that I told you. Now they have text nowadays, right? They have text that'll just text you directly to your phone. Oh, your account is, I don't know, suspended. Please click here to unfreeze your account and stuff like that. Be aware of text, phone calls, emails. I mean, you can never be too aware, but at the same time, I understand that there's so many cyber threats out there nowadays, but just make them aware of more recent ones that kind of pop up, like the ones I talked to. I promise there's no African prince that's gonna make you rich from that. So keeping accounts secure, kind of harping on fraud again, because it's a big topic. Joint bank accounts. So one thing that's good about joint bank accounts is one, you have your, let's say, a spouse or a mother and a father that are on one bank account. Well, let's say one of them passes away. It's a joint account though. What happens? So what happens is you literally, accounts are frozen because any non-qualified assets have to go through probate and succession. Non-qualified assets are things like checking accounts, individual investment accounts, a house, things like that. Qualified are like retirement accounts, things like that, that you can list the beneficiary, so it bypasses that. Point is, the trusted person or someone else, I usually recommend having a third user, someone that you trust really well, because let's say the father dies, the wife is left, guess what? You get social security checks sent to that checking account every single month. But it's frozen because it's going through succession and probate. If you have that third user who is not related to the probate portion, who is maybe a son or a daughter, whoever it is, they can access that account, move changes out. And I mean, if the mother needs it, they can take the social security check and go give it to her and things like that. So I think joint bank accounts, specifically having someone outside of just a marriage is important for estate planning, as well as it gives you more checks and balances overall. If you want to take it a step further, financial power of attorney, in general, obviously, we talk about trusted persons, they can't make any changes. Financial power of attorney, they can buy, sell, they pretty much are acting as you, right? You have to sign, it's an estate planning document, you have to sign. Some banking institutions don't accept it. So you do have to watch for that, and some it might be an additional form, but financial power of attorney, mainly just that person can pay bills, make changes, take withdrawal, they can pretty much do anything financially for you. So that might be something to consider for you all with your loved one if they're okay with that. And then not talking about trusted persons, so I'm gonna move on. And then, so the next one we're gonna talk about is healthcare. So healthcare is a really complex one, right? So I can literally have a whole entire presentation just on healthcare. I mean, Medicare, Medicaid, the amount of resources. I'm sure Brooke and this entire Alzheimer's Society or services in the capital area, they could attest and have a whole bunch of resources for you. I'm going to focus on very high level information gathering, as well as just giving you a more holistic view of what to kind of attack on the healthcare space. So there's definitely more to it, but this is just going to be like high level regarding it. So document contacts, access information. When we move forward, I want to say, so just like with a financial advisor, how I mentioned, you can talk to them about your income and expenses. You can attend these healthcare visits with specialists, PTs, pharmacists, primary care physicians, all those things with your loved one. And the thing that's beneficial about that is that you're a little bit more in the know. You can ask questions that they might slip their mind or they don't think to ask in order to do that. Obviously, they have to be okay with you because they're going to HIPAA and things like that. But at the same time, I think it's important to kind of document all those things. Also, you want to document all of their information healthcare wise, because I mean, some of these things, I don't want to be brash, but at the same time, they're life or death as far as like what you need to know about their situation and things like that. So it's important to have the contact information of at least like the specialists, the primary care physicians, things like that, in case you need to contact them about that. Are any of y'all veterans in here? Do you already have VA benefits? Yeah, so.
Husband is, but
No,
we don't have the.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to bring this up because explore your VA benefits, because honestly it's veterans assistance for those that don't know what VA stands for. You have to be a qualified I guess veteran, qualified veteran. I was like, couldn't think of the word qualified veteran. And typically, I mean, they can provide things like hospice care, prescription drugs, things like that. They offer great benefits if you're approved. If you already have VA benefits, I would definitely look at the coverages and things and how long it'll last for you. One thing to note, if you currently don't, if you know you have a VA in the family or someone that would qualify for VA, form DD-214. So what that is it's the form that pretty much applies for that. It's a long, grueling form, right? It's a lot of that goes into it. It might take you more than one trip to be able to fill that out.
We have a good contact within the VA that we can recommend people.
Yeah, Brooke just said that we have a great contact at the Alzheimer's services to recommend people to, which it's a great benefit to have and realize that again, it is long. But the benefits really outweigh the costs once you actually get approved. I will say I had a client back in January, just kind of give you a time frame, that applied and they finally got them in September. Now, times can vary, right? It could be a little bit shorter than that, it could be longer than that, but just to give you a reference of how long it can take for those to be approved. The nice part is it's all retrospective, so it does go back to the January date, but at the same time, it takes a little bit, but something good to explore. Check out that form, and Veterans Assistance website has a lot of information on that. So I don't know how many of y'all's doctors or physicians use MyChart. Pretty common, yeah, it's pretty common in the Baton Rouge area in general, but harping on the access, if your loved one's okay with it, you can have assistant access to their MyCharts. What does that do? You can have all their prior history, you can have all their upcoming visits and things like that. You can schedule, talk to their doctor. It's a great tool to have assistant access to. Obviously, you have to be willing to do it. Second one is what I kind of alluded to earlier, HIPAA release. So it's a federal law mandating that all your healthcare information is private. If they sign off on a HIPAA release, though, it is not private with them anymore. It's almost like a proxy where you can kind of view some of their medical benefits as long as your loved one is okay with that. These are great, especially I highly recommend this regardless if your loved one's incapacitated or not, or if they at whatever stage they're in, to just get these, because if there's an emergency or a healthcare I guess a healthcare event that happens where they can't make any decisions for themselves, and they don't know, they don't have anyone to ask. You already have all that information. So regardless if they're incapacitated, I definitely recommend looking at getting this release, and then possibly like access to the MyChart or whatever portal the doctor uses. If they don't have an online portal, I would say upper 90% of doctors and I guess medical, they have the opportunity to use it. So just contact the doctor, and I'm sure they can get y'all set up on some portal with that. So again, that was healthcare, very high level, just more so wanted to get all your ducks in a row. There's much more, like I said, whole presentation on medical, but I didn't want to get too far into the weeds. Legacy. So this is, I think these are both important. I think the more important one is facilitating the conversation, right? I mean, beat a dead horse, gather key documents. We said that for all three of them, right? So gather key documents for everybody. And what I will say to the point about gathering key documents, keep them secure. If they're a lot of people like to handwrite things. A lot of people like to have paper files and stuff like that. Have it in a safe, a lockbox, something where there's a lock, some type of barrier to get to it. If you want to keep files on your computer, might be a little more, depends on how complex it is, but you can encrypt them. If you encrypt them, they can have like a password on them, and then if there's a cyber threat to your computer, someone gets a virus, it's encrypted. It's usually more secure than almost anything else. And it's just a password. It's nothing crazy. So I definitely recommend that with any files when you're compiling all this stuff. If you compile on one area, save deposit box, safe, whatever it is, locked, or something online. Getting back to this legacy conversation, the conversation is the more important part than the documents, right? So you need to connect as early as possible, as well as often as possible. This isn't a one and done thing either. This isn't, oh, you asked about this. Now, a lot of people and loved ones, I should say, are hesitant to talk about their estate plan and their wills, right? They don't really like to divulge that information while they're living to their children. So what I like to say is okay, instead of attacking what am I going to get, what's in it for me, you kind of go into what were the financial values that you learned throughout your life. You know why? Because that just opens up a conversation for them to actually start talking about finances, not necessarily divulging all their secrets and information, but at the same time, it gets them talking about things, because most of the time, one, they like to express their achievements, right? Oh, I grew this to this, and I started out poor, and then I became this, and stuff like that. So I think just having a conversation, so talking about financial values, Ameriprise did a survey. It was 2/3 of all investors wanted to leave some type of wealth or inheritance to their heirs. So I mean, 2/3 of people do want to leave something to their children. Now, do they have to?
Two cents.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, do they have to? No. I mean, at the end of the day, those are their money, they earned it throughout their life, you or whatever, throughout your life. But at the same time, they also did a survey that 80% of those same people, the 2/3, 80% of people feel that their personal financial values are more important than leaving money to their heirs. What does that mean? Do they learn any financial lessons throughout their years? Do they have any causes, organizations, charitable endeavors that they like to contribute to financially? How did they grow their savings or retirement from ground zero to whatever it was or whatever it is today, right? They like talking about the successes and failures, right? There's some failures. They're going to tell you the bad stories too, how they lost everything on XYZ or they lost a lot on whatever it is, but that gets them talking. It makes it a lot more fluid, a lot more open. You're not talking about how much money am I getting, but you're talking about, okay, this is what we can kind of expect. What they want to, kind of like your grandma's favorite recipe, right? You want that to continue throughout the generations. A lot of loved ones and people in general, I'm sure a lot of yourselves want to instill whatever financial values you learn onto your children, not just a dollar amount. So I mean, best practices, mainly set aside intentional time. What I'll say about that is I do not recommend putting like a wedding or a funeral as the time, right? I mean, typically those are life-changing events for some people, and that's not, I know usually the family comes together for those type of things, but that's not really the intentional time. However, I would say family events, Thanksgiving's coming up, right? Thanksgiving's on a Thursday. You have a lot of people coming in. If it's a Friday or a Saturday, y'all can set together like an hour or two just to kind of talk about. And again, you're not talking about what's in it for me, what wills and stuff like that. You're talking about what do you want to leave? Like, what was your footprint on? Do you want me to learn from? And stuff like that. Documents, I think, while the trusted person, I think they should have one. Key documents, I think everyone that's involved should know where the key documents are, and they should be in a secure location. And you should know the attorney that drafted them as well. That should just be everything. I don't know if it'll. The last one says use the Ameriprise. I was gonna say the Legacy Family Planner or any planner. Honestly, I know Alzheimer's Society has a great planner with them. That's the little booklets you'll all have on the table. It just gives you a good comprehensive view. It kind of like a one size fits all, where you kind of look at everything, write down everything, have it all in one place. Obviously keep it secure once you do write everything down, because it has a lot that you can go through. But the people that are virtually, I have extra copies. If y'all want one, y'all can always request one and broker or someone can send them out to y'all. But that's the packets on there, just kind of goes through, as well as Alzheimer's, and there's other, you can Google one, and I'm sure that they have a good legacy planner online. So what are the key documents specifically? It's really, how many ones are
1240.
okay, I'm almost done. Birth, marriage, they have divorce certificates, insurance, military, social security cards, tax returns, property, car, bank and investment account information, will, power of attorney, healthcare proceeds, trust. Almost all the above, right? You can almost like take a screenshot of all of this. Again, don't expect to get them all done at once. This is like an overtime thing. But I definitely recommend like a zip encrypted something file that has, you can even have like separate folders in it that have finance, healthcare, estate. And so you can kind of divide everything in that way. But these are great just documents to know about that are important, especially when you get to estate planning and when that loved one does pass away one day, to kind of see what we need to have in a row. This just describes the planner. It's just some of the information in there. What I'll say is this slide is I think it's identical, honestly, as one of the ones earlier. It's just saying that in general, it's a partnership, right? I mean, this isn't a one size fits all. It's also not a one and done thing. I mean, I've harped on that a few times already, but you're gonna have some collaboration with your loved one, with your family members to make the world go around, make it happen. Understand the main thing is ongoing. Positive attitude is important too, because your own mental health is important, because sometimes it's gonna weigh on you, right? I mean, some nights you're gonna have Sally's soccer game from 5 to 6, and you're gonna go over to your mom's house and you're gonna have to make sure that she's bathed and everything like that. So some nights they're gonna weigh on you, right? But trying to have a positive attitude, utilize Alzheimer's services for any of that type of thing. See about resources for that. It's mainly one of those things that's important. And again, it's not just a one man or woman show. You have multiple people that are willing to help you: financial advisors, healthcare professionals, estate planning attorneys, nonprofits. You know, there's plenty of resources out there. And I hope that wraps it up. And I will just say that that's just my contact information if y'all want to talk about anything, but open for questions. We know we're through a lot in a short amount of time.
So I can, I'm gonna read some questions through the chat, but if anybody in here has some questions too, please feel free to speak up. We got one question asking if you could hold up the planner. Somebody thinks they already have it, but they want to see which one you have here.
Yeah. So
On Zoom, so just point it over here.
I'm gonna bring it over here. So this is what it looks like. You see
Yep.
okay. On the front, and then you can kind of go through it, and it has like, what do I want for my family goals? And it has like family tree. It'll have like account information later on, social, general information, things like that. It's a good comprehensive little planner that has, like, this one has all of your, when was it signed, where's the location, a lot of good like information that you can kind of fill out. And again, like most things, this isn't like I take this home, I try to tackle it all at once. You kind of just do it as you can, and then go from there. Especially like if you're caring for a loved one that might be incapacitated, it might be you filling out some of this for them and trying to find the information and everything. So.
And if anybody via Zoom wants one of those, I'm happy to mail it to you. Just email me and I'm happy to send that to you. This is Brooke. And we also do, for anybody in person or via Zoom, we also have some similar documents to that are not as financially planned. They're more of like life plan. One is called 5 Wishes. You know, what are your wishes for end of life? You know, just having all of those important conversations as soon as possible with your loved one with dementia, but also with your well loved ones, you know, just to make sure that we all are a part of the conversation that you want other people to know. Okay, so some other questions. Adam, where would you recommend for a family to start when they feel overwhelmed with the idea of financial planning?
I mean, without solicit, I would just say a financial planner. I don't want to solicit myself, but at the same time, financial planning is, there's a lot that go into it, right? I mean, it's not just income expenses, it's a lot of things we talked about today, right? Insurance, assets, liabilities, seeing where you might have debts and things like that. I would say there's a lot of great resources online. Investopedia is a good one. Smart Assets, a great one. That you can kind of look at via yourself. But if you want a more like complex discussion, I would definitely just meet with someone. I would meet with someone that's a certified financial planner professional, at least, because they would have a general knowledge of holistic financial planning of many areas. So.
What are some good questions to be sure to ask your financial planner upon seeing them?
Are you a fiduciary? So a fiduciary is something or someone that is acting in your best interest, regardless of what the income that they would generate from your business is. So regardless if this product does a great commission for me, I'm acting in your best interest. I don't care about what the income is to myself. Ask them what what's their best experiences throughout the years are. Seeing like if they have any personal experiences with someone in a situation similar to yours. While everyone has kind of a unique situation, you might have a completely different situation that they've never dealt with before. For instance, some advisors focus on like military, some focus on plant workers, things like that. They focus on different things. And then in general, how are they charged, or how are they compensated, as well as ask for if we can do like retirement income projections and things like that. So I would just say have holistic goals and questions in mind, and it's more so a feel as well as what type of expertise do they have. They have any designations, are they fiduciary, things like that.
What would you recommend? I just spoke to somebody the other day who has never been married. They do not have children. They don't have family that live around them. What would you recommend for a person like that who is starting, gathering all of their information? What would you recommend for a person like that when doing financial planning and considering planning for long-term care if they're doing it solo?
Are they young? Like,
No.
are they, so they're older, but they're single, they don't have any financial plan or retirement plan or anything? So, regardless of your age, start sooner than later, right? I mean, whether you're 25 or 65, it's never too early. It can be too late, but it's never too early to start retirement planning and things like that. Try to access whatever benefits you can, Social Security, any type of income sources. If you don't have any sources of like retirement plans or anything like that, I would just recommend try to get your emergency fund, right? Depending on whatever income you have. And then from there, you can kind of move forward and try to plan for your retirement. But starting at ground zero at 65, there's options, but at the same time, it's going to take some rice and beans and rice sometimes to be able to kind of make it through retirement, especially because the average life expectancy just keeps going up. Whether you're incapacitated, have dementia or not, the life expectancy it's probably going to be in the 80s, upper 80s, low 90s in most of our lifetime. So you have to realize that you're living a lot longer. Retiring at 64 or 65 might not be in the cards if you have 30-ish years left in there, which people, I mean, you have another third of your life left. So I would sit with a planner to kind of lay out everything on the table and let them know this is what I have, and then they can kind of help guide you through, okay, these are what your capabilities are with what you have. But we're not miracle workers all the time. We can do the best with what you have, but at the same time, it's we can give you the best output for what your situation is. So.
Okay. What if it is a person whose, same example, they have worked until right now, but they are not married. They do not have children. They don't have any close family, and they are trying to pass off this information to somebody, a trusted source. Can a financial planner act as that trusted source if it's not like a family member?
A financial planner can, I can't be like a POA for a client. So like the financial power of attorney, I can't be a power of attorney and then have a client and then just make all the trade. And I was like, oh, I'm acting in his interest. That we can't do that.
Okay.
It doesn't go to that extent. But Ameriprise in general, like the corporate level of the company, can act as one of those type of people that can act in your best interest from that standpoint, but it's more complex. I would say someone that doesn't know, I've talked about it like 2 or 3 times. I just recommend meeting with one, but I mean, we have a free consultation. A lot of other ones also have free consultations. See what lay out all your questions, get as much information, be a sponge, and then even if you don't end up working with that person, at least you got something out of it. You got some information that you can take with you and kind of distribute from there. I don't know if that answers the question per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you speak about a irrevocable trust?
Yeah. So that's
Can you
more.
repeat the question for?
So he asked if I can speak about an irrevocable trust. So that does lay more on the estate planning side of things. I'm not an estate planning attorney, so I can't talk about the ins and outs of it, but at the same time, irrevocable trust is typically you have a lot more estate capabilities because you're making a judgment of like this person is the beneficiary, but you can't take it back. Right? Irrevocable just means set in stone. This is what it is. It has a lot of estate benefits. Revocable, on the other hand, does not have as many estate benefits as an irrevocable one does, but you can take it back. You can change it however many times you want. Irrevocable, you're stuck. But they have really, we can discuss later, but there's like a lot of good opportunities to kind of utilize that if that's something that you already have in place, or if that's something you're considering for what your situation is. But it's kind of a case-by-case basis on if those make sense or not.
Okay. How does the third trusted person work with a joint account when one partner dies? Are they able to access a third of the funds when the 2/3 are in probate? So maybe talking more about probate and what that is, and then also having the third trusted person on your account.
Yeah. So to answer the first part of it, having a joint account, you still have access to the whole account, right? I mean, so the third person, I guess I'll step back. Probate and succession happens when the date of death someone passes away, right? Those non-qualified, which is a checking or savings account, frozen, date of death, right? So no one can access those. That's at least a joint holder of that. The third person can kind of come in and say, okay, well, I'm not related to that case because I'm outside of the immediate family. I still have access to all of those assets and cash in between. That's why a third person is generally useful, because you have 100% access, I should say. You don't have a third, 2/3, you have 100% of the account. It's just useful when you're in Social Security check, you can take it out. Income expenses, sometimes you have mortgage payments, you have a lot of payments that flow through one checking account typically. So you kind of need access to that, and it can put you in a sticky situation if you're not prepared for it beforehand. So yeah, I would say probate and succession, that's just, like I said, non-qualified accounts, so not IRAs, 401ks, any of that. That's just anything that doesn't have a tax deferred designation or tax-free designation. It's a taxable designation, just like your tax on interest in your bank account, just like your tax if you have a non-qualified individual investment account, if you have dividends from that, you're taxed on those, right? So that's where it kind of applies. That makes sense, but it's also like an estate planning piece that, I mean, I would talk to an attorney about to get more of the nitty-gritty details and everything.
Okay. Unless anybody has any other questions, I can ask one final question and you can give some final remarks.
Yeah.
I have never heard of someone talking about freezing credit. Can you talk more about that? Because I do think that probably is very beneficial to a lot of our loved ones that we talk about here, because, you know, our loved ones, they're not buying a new car, you know, we're trying to protect them as much as possible. So can you talk about what that process looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the banking institution, but mainly, I mean, kind of what I mentioned is you're able to freeze their credit, which prohibits any inquiries. So fake or scammers trying to make new accounts, they can't open up new credit cards, they can't get a new loan out there, mortgage, car loan. It does freeze all those capabilities, so you have to be wary of that. But honestly, some banking institutions, you can just call them up, or they have online, and they have even like a little mini form online that you can just press freeze, and then honestly, when you're ready, you can press unfreeze, and then right after you do the I guess the new line of credit, if you wanted a new mortgage or whatever it is, freeze it again. It's kind of like a on-off switch that you can kind of tap into, and I mean, there's no penalty, no harm to you. It just is more so, like I said, kind of give it a barricade to your credit, so you don't have to worry as much about someone trying to steal your identity and making a false account in your name. So it's a good tool, and a lot of banks are pretty, especially with the security that banks have nowadays, local ones even, They have those capabilities. I would say I would just call if you don't see anything online, online accounts. I said that sign up for your online accounts, definitely just call and I'm sure that they'll give you the process of, it's either as simple as saying, hey, freeze my credit, and then call and say unfreeze or what have you. So it's something permanent, right? It's very, go with the tide, but it's a useful tip from that standpoint.
Yeah.
The last speaker talked about something and I didn't quite understand it. It was about making, like shifting assets from the vulnerable person to another family member so that the vulnerable person would be eligible
Medicaid.
for Medicaid. Do you know anything about that?
I do, they have a 5-year look back. You have
They
to
have a
watch
what?
5-year look back. So what happens is you can see your loved one going, I don't say downhill, but going more incapacitated. And you can't be like, oh, because I want them to apply for Medicaid, I know they're going to have to go to a facility, which long-term care facilities, I mean, geez, they cost almost like 10 grand a month, right? I mean, that can easily spend down all your assets, even if you had a lot of them. What they do is they try to like, oh, let me flip this 200,000 they have in their bank account over to my name real quick. And even if it's a donation, it doesn't matter. The 5-year look back is where they get you though, right? Because the IRS, if you did it, let's say a year ago, and then you apply for Medicaid, you get to a level where your Medicaid is there. They look at all of your records the last 5 years. They see that one a year ago saying, oh, you just transferred 200,000 to XYZ. Nope, you're not getting Medicaid. So that's one of the things the 5-year look back is important. Some estate plan, you talk about irrevocable trust.
That's what we did.
Yeah, that's one of the partial solutions. Obviously have a more complex discussion with an estate planning attorney, but that's one of the ways that you can kind of also like charitable trust, right? If you maybe don't necessarily need all the money, you can do one of those type of things. But did that answer your question fully? It's just more so you can't just get up and transfer it to them. And I mean, if you do it like way ahead of time and then like 6 years or later and then you're fine, you're okay technically, right? But anything within the last 5 years, they're gonna find you and they're gonna get you.
We have Linda Melansaw, who is a local elder law attorney, and she's actually one of the attorneys on our list for this program. She did a presentation on that last year. It's on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so check.
So just look up Linda Melansaw. Is about a year ago she did that presentation.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure she'll go into way more detail than I just did, but that's the general gist of what that was talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Well, all we need is a crystal ball, so we know when it would be.
When you need it, yeah.
Right.
All right, well, it's one, so you can give any
Okay.
closing remarks and I'll leave it.
I don't have many, I mean, I'm hammering home document, and then just consistent. It's not a one-time thing. You want to have all of them in one place. I'm a very detail-oriented person. I get that it can be difficult though to get all of your ducks in a row, have all of your financial statements, healthcare statements, and the estate planning all in one place and compiled and recent, right? But at the same time, just having a cognizant effort, trying your best, and like I said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's no right or wrong order, right? I mean, maybe some of these things are already taken care of. Maybe some of them could use some work. So I would just say, just have the conversations more, have a lighthearted turn home to it. If you ever get stressed out or things start going south, just revert, you know? I mean, you can talk about it another time, you know? I mean, I know some of these conversations can get out of context sometimes, but it's just important to be diligent and make sure that everything is in place before something happens, like incapacity, death, things like that. So
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. All right.